Hey, Alex here from Blacksheep IT Consulting. Welcome to another update along. This time I'm taking an old training machine with 20.11, the pre-MDE version of Siebel, to the latest, at the time of this recording, 22.10. So almost spanning 2 years of development by Oracle. So let's see how this goes. So on this machine, we have full stack. So we have an Oracle database, we have a Siebel gateway registry, we have the Siebel server, and we have the two Tomcats, the internal and external Tomcat. And they all stopped along with the debug service. I just made sure that all the Siebel services are stopped. Now the installer I've already downloaded and extracted, so we can go to the install folder of disk 1 and run setup bat as administrator. And select, let's start with the SES, the home of the internal Siebel Enterprise Server. That's the gateway and Siebel server. That's going to get updated to 22.10 now. So when we click next on that, we see that this is now switching to the pre-MDE upgrade. So it lists all the available components. There's nothing to change here. And now is the important part. Let's get this on full screen. The post-installation database update. So we choose execute here and just make sure we have the correct table owner, passwords, yes, admin password. The ODBC data source is correct, that's fine. Table spaces are also fine in this example database. We have the SSE role and we have a German language pack here. It's important that you select it actually. Click it once. Any other language that you have, make sure it's selected. Then click next and verify real quick that the other languages are listed as well. Okay, let's go minimize that and hit install. And off we go. So this is a pre-MDE installation. So the MDE installer was introduced in 21. So this is 20.11, so it's pre-MDE. So there will be a lot of changes in the folder structure. And we should already see it probably. We go to the Siebel installation folder carefully. Yeah, we already see the old pre-MDE pre-22.10 folder has been completely saved, backed up by simply renaming it, and an entirely new SES folder is now created by the installer, and then all the custom stuff will be migrated over. So this will of course take a while to lay down the binaries, lay down the files, and apply the changes. So we'll speed this up a little bit. So here we can see the installer has finished copying the files, is now checking for custom or modified files, and is now copying the files to the new home. So any custom or modified files, most of them will be just copied over into the new place. However, you have to make sure that you verify that all your customizations are migrated over. So we are still in the SES update, and now the post-installation process has started. So this will take a while since we are spanning almost 2 years of changes. So all the changes between 20.11 and 22.10 will be imported, all the mandatory changes, which includes database schema changes, seed data changes, and manifest changes. So we have to be patient here, but we can monitor the progress on let's say, Windows Task Manager, where we see the, well, at this point, the cpdef CLI executable doing its thing, importing, for example, ZIF files. So we have to wait that out, and of course we will be patient, and we are speeding this up a little bit, and we will check back once this utility has finished. So it took a while, but eventually the post-install database setup has completed, and of course the next thing we do is, well, finish the installer and check out the report for the post-install database update. So let's go to the Siebel server folder. So that's the new one, the new SES folder. The pre-22.10, that's the copy of the previous version, in our case 20.11. So this is an MDE migration, and we have the new folder structure here, and all the custom files should be migrated. But let's check the log first. So Siebel server log should contain a post-install database setup HTML report. So let's check it out. And so it has a big green icon on top, successful execution, which is very good. And you have all the parameters here that you can review. You can review any of the steps executed during initialization. The WS ranking was already run. Then there's a large section on seed schema manifest upgrade. So the three things that happen is schema updates, seed data import, and manifest data update or insert. So there are a lot of steps because we are coming from 20.11, and apparently it applies anything from 20.3. So when the post-install database setup was first conceived, to make sure everything's applied correctly in terms of schema. If the table already exists, there's no change needed. So apparently there's a lot of schema changes going on, and you might be interested in, okay, what schema changes have been done. So you can go to the schema tab, and you see all the way in that report the table and column names, if applicable, or index, also index names, from 20.3 upwards, new and modified columns. So that's quite a lot here, as we can see. So back to the summary. The seeds changes are also from 20.3 upwards, so quite a lot if you have that time span between your two versions. So that is almost 2 years. So you get a lot of stuff in there. And again, you can go for the seed tab, and for each table you see what has been imported. So for example, SAP view, there are quite some views that have been imported, or CT event, that's a smaller one. That's runtime events or action sets. Keep in mind that these are only the mandatory changes. Post-install database setup imports the mandatory stuff. If you require anything that requires a repository upgrade, stay tuned. We will do a repository upgrade soon. And the manifest lists all the manifest changes that have been applied to your development environment. Okay, so that report is looking good. So we are on track. Let's take a look at our checklist. So we have stopped all the Siebel services, updated the SES. We have verified post-install database setup, verify custom file migration. On this environment, I have one file in SIEP server classes, the debug server properties file. And the customization that I made to this file is the port number. So 10,000 being the default, and on my environment, the port number is 9999. So that change was not propagated or migrated. I have to redo it manually, and you might have some occasions where you have to manually verify the migration of your changes that you applied prior to the update. So this is also something I need to do because the debug server, it's a development environment, and the debug server needs to be recreated. And that's on our checklist too. So the next part on the checklist here is restore SES Tomcat settings. So let's take a look at the services. There is an update happened to Tomcat as well. So the AI is still the old one, 9037. The internal one, notice the new service name is 9065, and it's automatic start. And on my environment, I would like to start it manually. So I modify the service to manual and apply that, and I copy that executable path. Open a command line, paste that path, and then change the RS to ES and Tomcat 9 to Tomcat 9W. And when you run that command line, you get this nice dialog of the registry settings, basically of the Apache service wrapper for Tomcat. So in the Java section, you will notice that the initial and maximum memory pool settings are back to the meager defaults, which are totally unsuitable for any professional Siebel environments. We need to change them. On my simple training machine, I just, well, multiply by 10 and I'm good. But your mileage will vary a lot here, and you might need to reset your memory and maybe other settings as the service has been recreated, has been deleted and created again with the defaults. So let's apply this. And I also have a script which uses the service name. The service name changed. Let's find that script. There's a start Siebel script. And so the internal service name changed, and the AI external will also change later. So I need to make sure that all my scripts are updated here with the correct service name. Another change I need to have on my checklist to be aware of it. Okay, now we can recreate the debug service. The debug service needs to be recreated if you jump across the log4j vulnerability issue. That's basically was 21.12. So if you jump across 21.12, you have to remove the service and recreate it. That's a security thing. So here's the debug service. It's stopped already. And I can use the Windows command prompt to delete it using SC, service control, delete, and the service name. Let's close that dialog first. Okay, let's refresh. So the debug service is gone, but I can recreate it from the Siebel server bin directory. Of course, I have to do a CD here and show me anything with the debug. That's the batch file I need to run. Install debug service bat. That should recreate the service. So let's check. Okay, service is recreated. It's automatic start, which is fine. Let's start it to make sure it comes up fine. So that's taking care of the debug service in development environments. So next up, and we can stay in the Sieb server bin directory for this one, is the repository upgrade. I want to demonstrate it. It's optional, but it's very likely that when you span 2 years from your old version to the new version, there's lots of stuff that Oracle puts in the non-mandatory or optional repository upgrade that you might want to have. For example, 22.10, which I'm updating to, includes integration with the Oracle Cloud AI services, but relies on repository artifacts and business services involved, etc. So if you want these artifacts, you need to run the repository upgrade executable. Let's run it without arguments, because then it just tells us which arguments are required. So let's run it one more time, this time with the correct arguments. So there's the Siebel server path, there's the table owner, there's the table owner user, there's the table owner password, there's the ODBC data source, so we can use the same as the post-install database update. Let's see if we can find that. That's the one we used. Let's copy that name. And the database platform in my case is Oracle. Siebel username is sadmin. Password for sadmin. What else do we need? We need the table spaces. So same table space for both index and tables. Not very common, but it's a training environment. The SSE role. And if you have language packs, make sure -w with a comma separated list of your language packs. Okay, this is going to be a big one. Let's run it. And as you can see, it's already kicking off with the schema installation. So let's scroll up a little bit. So it found that 17.0 is the repository version. So there has been no repository upgrade ever. And 22.10 is the version we're going to. So it applies everything from 20.3 up to 22.10, spanning a lot of time. And it finds out which schema changes need to be applied. It's currently importing those schema changes. You can monitor their progress. And it's good old cpdef CLI again, running in the background, doing the CIF file imports. You might be wondering what is imported in those CIF files. And while this is running, we can go to the Siebel server bin folder and look for two large zip files. One is for the post-install database setup, and one is for the repository upgrade. So let's open that repository upgrade. So that is where you can literally look up what is in what version. So you have no choice. Everything will get imported into a new developer workspace underneath an integration workspace. So Oracle makes sure you don't have to merge it with main. You can run it in deliver it into an integration workspace and then test it before you deliver it to main. So for example, if you're interested what's in 22.10, there's a repository folder with a CIF file, which you can open in Siebel Tools. Once you updated it, or even in an older version, it should just open. You can inspect the CIF file. And there's also the seed repository update folder, the seed data, for example, ENU. You can check that out. And there's a table names list, so that table will get updated in 22.10. So if you're patient enough and go up all the way, you can retrieve whatever information you want from that zip file. And same is true for post-install database setup.zip. It has a similar structure. So here we see the tables that are modified for 22.10, but of course we have applied everything from 20.3 to 22.10 already. So that was just a side note. Well, as you can see, DDLimp is currently running, applying the schema changes already. Yes, syncing logical and physical schema. So we have to wait for the repository upgrade to complete before we take any further action. So we will pause the video here and come back when it's finished. So it took quite a while, but eventually the repository upgrade is finished. So what happened is that if we scroll up in the command console here, is that it identified that needs to install everything starting from 20.3. That's because there was no prior repository upgrade on this environment. And it looked for schema changes to import, which it did. Then it looked for repository import changes, basically CIF file imports. And it imported seed data and manifest data. The repository data is placed inside an developer workspace, inside an internal integration workspace in Siebel Update. And that's the name of the developer workspace. The developer workspace has been delivered into Siebel Update, so you can do some preliminary testing, but you have yet to deliver that into whatever is your parent workspace of that, probably main. In our system, it's main. So first, let's check out the log file, which is situated in the Siebel server log folder. So that's the repository upgrade log HTML report. So that's very similar to the post-install database update with all the information regarding repository, schema, manifest, and seed import. So if you look into repository, we see we bridged quite the gap here from 20.3 to 22.10. Despite the version number here, should be 22.10. So that's, well, more than 2 years, almost, yeah, 2.5 years really, of content. So 237 applets have either been inserted or updated. And you can see the version number when that was part of the repository upgrade. So for example, 22.10, there's updates to the service request list applet and so forth. There are 4 applications inserted or updated, where also it could mean that the application simply has been activated, as is the case for Siebel ERM, for example. So you don't see much detail here, but you can see once you log into Siebel Tools or Web Tools and inspect the Integration Workspace. So same for business components, etc. Then we have the schema changes, which are documented here. We have the manifest changes, and we have the seed data changes, where, for example, list of values is quite interesting, although there's not much in here. And you have to go through this and decide for yourself if these changes interfere with your settings or not. Probably not, but best to double check. So that went well. Now we need, basically we need a current version of Siebel Tools to be able to proceed further with delivering those changes, or conducting a rebase. Maybe that's necessary. We don't know yet. So we launch the installer one more time. So here on our checklist we have the optional repository upgrade Upgrade. We have Run, and we have Update Tools as the next step. So we find the Siebel Tools installation folder on this machine, and of course you have to update every single Siebel Tools instance on your developer machines, etc. So nothing to see here. It's going into migration mode because it's pre-MDE. And nothing to do here except press install. And it will likewise copy the original Siebel Tools folder into a backup and create a new tools folder with the new architecture. So let's verify that claim. On the Siebel folder, yeah, we can already see the backup copy of the tools folder and a new tools folder that is now being quickly filled up with binaries. So we'll check back on that once it's done. So the Siebel Tools MDE installer update has finished. We can close that. And before we launch Siebel Tools, actually, let's check out the Tools CFG file in tools bin ENU. So that should be just fine. One thing I want to change is the symbolic string prefix, which is the custom value x underscore by default. And since we will be conducting a delivery which contains symbolic strings with SBL because they're standard, we have to change symbolic string prefix to SBL underscore. We have to do that before we start the Siebel Tools client. So now let's start Siebel Tools. And when Siebel Tools starts up, let's go to Workspace Explorer. Well, let's first verify the new version. Yeah, we have 22.10, all right. And here indeed we find the int Siebel update integration workspace created by the repository upgrade utility along with the development workspace underneath, which initially was used to import all the ZIF files. And we can check on the ZIF file or the objects here in more detail. So we see the operation, at least update or insert. So you can sort this. You can export this to Excel for documentation. And you can, of course, well, count the changes. There are more than 1,000 changes since 20.3. So that's quite a big workspace here. And it has been delivered into int Siebel update. So all that is left is, of course, test that. So I will skip that step. This is a demonstration. You would usually set up the application and run on that integration workspace to make sure that all the artifacts are in place and work well along with your customizations, etc. So you have to plan some time for that. So let's put that into our checklist. So that is, of course, optional because repository upgrade was optional. And test, validate, and deliver. So we will do the deliver step. So we have to open that integration workspace and submit it for delivery. And yeah, as expected, there could be a rebase required. So that is okay because, well, the submission found potential conflicts and we can click OK on that. And now we have to do the rebase. So the rebase will take the current latest main and apply or merge it downstream into the integration Siebel update version 1. That will of course take a while, and then once it's finished we will analyze and confirm the conflict resolution. So we'll check back on that once it's finished. So finally the rebase is complete, so we have yet to click Resolve Conflicts. To go to this nice view in Siebel Tools where we see the merge, which is pending resolution, and we see each and every object with attribute differences listed here. So for example, the list of values integration object, well, it's a victim to rebase here, but it already existed. There are web templates, which, for example, get a new definition. There's an update on web templates as well. So you have to be careful with this information and analyze for each object that you might have customized yourself, especially web templates where you might have modified the code, because that code is either you can choose the base, the from version value, or you can choose the to version value by selecting the override flag. But it's either or. You cannot merge the code with, let's say, the changes you did in the original and the changes Oracle did in the new version. So be careful with that. Analyze it. Analyze the information within your team. Take your time. And once you have analyzed the information and decided when to override the decision of the merge process or not, it's okay to finish the rebase. And that just takes a few moments before we can then deliver the integration workspace. So click OK on that merge process completed. So now if we go to the integration workspace, we see it has a new version as a result of the rebase with the objects that have been modified during the rebase. So now we can attempt to open it again and submit for delivery. And this time this will work. There will be no rebase required anymore, and now we can deliver this repository upgrade 22.10 into a new version of main or whatever integration workspace you have in between. So main is not necessarily the target, always depends on your mileage. So this will, of course, take a bit, and we shall come back once it's finished. So eventually the deliver process has completed, so we can mark this as done. And let's check out the main workspace resulting. Let's refresh this. There we go. So here's the merged resulting main workspace. Again, this could be an integration workspace or the main workspace. And it has all the features that have been included in the repository upgrade since 20.3. Since on this environment we have never ever conducted a repository upgrade before, so we have managed to accomplish this task and now have all the cool features. So let's close Siebel Tools for now. And we still have to update two more pieces of software. That is the AI, and we have to update the developer web client, which of course is used throughout development environments, albeit a little less so with the modern web tools versions having the ability to debug scripts and even simulate workflows. So first things first, update the AI. So again, we start the MDE. And pick the AI installation folder. Again, this might be multiple machines in your case, and follow through the installation. So with the AI, there comes the external Tomcat, which is on this environment as the original one from Siebel 20.11. And this one will be replaced by a new one. So again, we have to reconfigure the new service once the installer has completed. So if we refresh this now, we can already see the old service is gone and will soon be replaced by a new service, which we need to apply the configuration in terms of memory allocation, etc. So we will come back when the installer has finished. So the installer is finished. We also see it has started the new web server, and we can close off the installer and take a look at the service changes. So here on this Windows machine, yes, there's a running Tomcat 9065, gives away that it's from the latest Siebel version. It's running automatic, so let's change that. I'm using a script here, so we set that to manual. And now let's take care of those settings. So copy the executable and in a command prompt, paste it in. And before you run it, change RS to ES and Tomcat 9 to Tomcat 9W. This gives you the dialog like so. And in the Java section, make sure you replace those ridiculously small numbers with decent numbers according to your environment. And okay, and by now I'm stopping the Tomcat as well, since I will restart it later. And last thing, I will copy the service name because I have yet to update the start and stop script that I have on this machine, replacing the old service name with the new service name. That's a Windows thing. Doesn't happen on Unix or Linux, but on Windows. That happens when you come from a pre-MDE version, like we do here. Okay, script is in place. The only update that's left for now is the developer web client, so let's take care of that. Last time we start the installer. And the client is installed in this home folder. Nothing to do here apart from proceed through the dialogues and installer starting. Let's check out the Siebel home directory here. We can see also for the client and AI, there's a backup folder created when you migrate from a pre-MDE version to an MDE version, like we do here from 20.11 to 22.10, spanning almost 2 years of updates, and we will come back when the client update is finished. So the client installer has finished. That's the developer web client that we updated here. So say bye-bye to the installer. And now let's see our checklist. All that is left is to restart the environment, make sure everything's in place. The custom file migration in this special scenario could be tricky, so after updating the AI and also the developer web client, I'll add the custom file migration step. So you have to make sure that any custom files or customizations to standard files are present again in the new folder, because this is a pre-MDE migration. You get a new folder, and the installer takes care of a lot of files, but not all of the files. Okay, so I got a script to start the Siebel environment. Let's kick it off. And it's a timed script, so it will take a while until the entire environment is started up. So we'll check back for the first tests when the startup sequence has finished. So maybe while these servers are starting up, let's take care of DISA. So DISA is vital to many environments, especially if you run test automation. You should take care that you have the recent DISA version matching your Siebel version. So there's DISA installed and running. The right click gives away it as 20.11 or 220.11 as it was then. We have to uninstall these old versions. If you have a later version, you can install on top of it, but it's safer to uninstall this one. So let's find the change program features for Windows and uninstall DISA. Okay, could not remove some directories, not to worry about that much. And now let's, DISA is gone. Now let's install DISA 22.10. So run the installer that you downloaded from Oracle support. So English is okay. And so we'll proceed through the installer. We still keep the DISA folder. Port number is fine. The allow list, we have to look that up. We can still use the old config properties from the previous installation. It's kept here, so I'm copying the allow list string. And let's generate a new key store. Let's make up some CN information there. Click next. It's all okay. So DISA installation has finished. And it's starting up, and the version 22.10, that's fine. So if you use DISA for test automation, then make sure you go into plugins, Siebel test automation, find that unit config XML file, open it with any editor that's suitable, and in the vanilla file there's the wrong URL. So here replace this with your real application URL and make sure you have the correct browser settings, etc., so that the file is ready. Let's save that. Okay. So let's check one more time. Yeah, it's now okay. So our server has started and we can go for testing. So let's check out the call center application. Comes back with a login screen, so the object manager is up. Let's log in. Okay, we get a home page and let's check out technical support, where we can see the application version is now 22.10 and the repository version is 22.10 as well, since we conducted the repository upgrade successfully. Okay, that's well done. Let's check out Web Tools. And Web Tools comes up just nicely. Of course, we can check technical support here as well. Should not be different from the client. And for good measure, let's check out the SMC, Siebel Management Console, and see that, well, it has the new layout that was introduced a while ago. And let's check out management and see how the enterprise is doing. So there's only one server, should be running. Yep, it is, and components on that server. So everything as expected. We have a few manual components here. They are shut down, but call center is healthy. So there you have it, a complete update from 20.11 to 22.10, spanning almost 2 years of Oracle updates, 23 monthly updates, including the optional repository upgrade, which has even more information from 20.3 to 22.10. Hope you like this update along. See you next time. Thanks and bye-bye.